Good afternoon, everyone. If we were to follow the program, I think we're fast out of time, so I think that wraps up the day. Just kidding. These two gentlemen won't get away with not having to say something for today. Earlier today, there was a presentation by the IDB and then an additional fireside with Minister Koi, and there was two takeaways that caught my attention. The first being, the IDB indicated that conclusions from some study that they had that in terms of the strength and success of business was as a result of, one, the lack of human capital and lack access to finance. If I were to rewrite their conclusions, I would put access to finance as number one. Because when you build it, they will come. You remember that movie? And once you make that investment, the human capital thing, I believe, works in tandem, and also secondarily because generally small and medium enterprises are mom and pop starts, and you move forward, and then you start looking for additional human capital for expansion and that kind of thing. Hence the reason why I would kind of rewrite that little story by the IDB. But coming closer to home, I just wanted to get some feedback in terms of some direct responses to how can we as investors tap into financial resources, and particularly the cost of finance. And the second item, I didn't mention, that Minister Koi had mentioned that caught my attention is that our average interest rates in Belize are around 9%, thereabouts, industry-wide within among all financial institutions. And so I thought that within that context and the backdrop, I would ask firstly, Mr. Anderson, Henry's fine, good. I'll ask Henry from a development bank perspective. I believe what concessionary or development financing opportunities exist for priority areas such as tourism, agriculture, and renewable energy?
All right. Thanks, Kimo, and good afternoon. Thanks for having me here on behalf of the DFC. So if we go back to 2021, government made an investment in the DFC with a debt equity swap, and that gave DFC the ability to start lending. You may have heard Minister Koi mention in the session this morning that we changed the definition of MSME, and because our loan agreements that we have, it just mentions that we can lend to MSMEs based on country's definition. The definition Belize had going back to 2021, if you go on the medium side, was companies that have gross sales of $1 million Belize dollars. And that didn't allow the DFC to do much. And so we went to government and we said, listen, we need to get the law changed to broaden the scope for DFC. And so that was done. And please also broaden the definition of MSME to an international level. Why? Because if we want to push exports, then we have to understand that what's waiting for us out there is a real medium-sized enterprise. So government changed that to 30 million. Now, what that has done for DFC is it has allowed us to get all the way in deep into the economy, and I'll give some examples later. But to answer your question, we're looking at inclusion, right? And so DFC average lending rate right now is below 9%, actually, all right? And if you go back, it was all already 12, 14, 16%. So we got a loan from the IDB back in 2021. When we got the loan, it was priced at 1.2%. We signed it right here. And because it's tied to the SOFR rate, secured overnight finance rate, that loan priced all the way up to 6.7%. But we had another source of financing that was tied with that project from ICDF Taiwan at 2%. So that allowed us to basically offer more concessional financing to clients. What we do also, Kimo, is we look at the tenor and the structure of the loan, right? So On the micro side, we walked away from requiring land collateral for everything. So land collateral comes in at over 40,000. So that makes it easier, especially for women, because in Belize you find women don't have access to land as much. And I'll tell you this, that we get better results lending to women than to males, right? Women pay back far better. So
Round of applause for the women.
yeah, so the way we structure the loans, depending on the investment you're doing, so if you're in the tourism industry, for example, in the slow season, when we had slow seasons, then we collect less, all right? If you are in the fishing industry and lobster is out of season, well, we won't collect when lobster is out of season. So we basically do that. We also work with other government entities to work on bringing new instruments to de-risk loans. So we have the CRESAP program, which is Social Investment Fund, Ministry of Agriculture, World Bank, and DFC working as an executing agency there. What the CRESAP does, it offers grants. You have 2 windows. So for smaller projects, you can get grants up to 5,000. And for larger projects, it can go up to 60,000. And what that does, providing you meet the criteria, of course, but it de-risks the projects for DFC. It allows us to be more competitive, and it allows the farmers, in this case, to be able to get things done that make their investments more resilient in the whole thing of climate change. So those are some of the things we do. For renewable energy, we had Dr. McFarlane up here on the stage from the CARICOM Development Fund. They have a special remit or a special function to push what is called the just transition in CARICOM, meaning moving away from fossil fuels, going to renewable energy. So they have a line of financing that we have access to that we can lend at 6%. And we also have what is called a credit risk abatement facility. So the thing with renewable energy, if it's scaled properly, you pay from your savings. So let's say you have a resort that has a loan with a commercial bank or some other financial institution, and they want to access this loan from us at 6%. And it's not only the loan. Right now, they're still providing the engineering studies for free, right? So that saves a whole lot of money. What we're able to do then is to use the craft facility, and it provides DFC with an 80% guarantee on that project, right? So the entity does not have to find collateral because we have an instrument to manage that. So those are ways that we are working with micro, small, and medium enterprises to make financing more accessible.
Yeah, so in order to give investors sort of confidence in terms of the capacity of DFC, you did mention the implementation of these changes over the past few years. Operationally, how has the portfolio been functioning? Just to give everybody a feel for.
Okay, so if you look at coming out of COVID or pre-COVID, DFC was basically having a big celebration to approve 20 million in loans. At the end of last year, we approved over 55 million. We disbursed over 40 million. The NPL came down from about 27% coming out of COVID to 8.86. Our benchmark is 15. So the portfolio has grown to about $165 million right now. That's about 40% greater than where it was in 2021. And the quality is not because of the portfolio growth, but it's because of an absolute reduction in the projects that weren't going well. And what we did constructive workouts with clients, we restructure. And in some cases where we had clients that weren't good clients for what we do, then we work with them to get them off the books in a way that works for them. So, and we're liquid right now. So,
which is good to hear. And I think it's just to continue enticing investors in terms of ease of access, in terms of tapping into these financing structures.
So if I could say 2 things, right? DFC has been doing a lot of work to improve how we function, and we still have work to do. One of the things that PM asked way back when, in 2021, when he asked me to be chairman, was please let DFC stop losing money. We're profitable for 3 years now in a row. And also, we need to do things quicker. And so we are putting in a whole new core management system to be able to do that. You were the auditor, you know what we had there. And this thing is no code, which means we have full functionality and we have adapted it to what we do. We don't have to call any consultants to come and change everything. It has AI, machine learning. Every piece of data we pick up, we have the ability to analyze. We have put in a monitoring, evaluation, and accountability learning strategy systems there. So, for example, when IDB, who have supported some of these works, looked at it, and ICDF Taiwan, but in the case of IDB, they basically said to the chairman that DFC will be able to function like a big IFI, but it's like boxing, right? We're small, so we're not comparing ourselves to them, but the ability to do so. We expected that by the end of this year, clients will be having more online access to DFC. Right now, we can't give you your balance electronically. In a month's time, we'll be able to do that. And we're building what is called a loan factory. So for the smaller loans, that will be fully automated. And if the loan is rejected, then we adjudicate to CY to make sure there's no hallucination and with AI and all of that. Why do we have to do that? Because DFC was using the same energy to appraise a $5,000 loan and a $2 million loan. That makes no business sense, right? So all of those things we are changing proper risk, enterprise risk management systems in place. So a lot of work is ongoing.
Excellent. And just finally, how does DFC approach blended financing models to unlock the private sector investments in Belize?
Okay, so we're lots of work there. DFC, I think we're the only financial institution to date that has onboarded what is called an environmental and social management system, all right? And that's important because when we look at a project, we look at it through a climate lens, an environmental lens, a social lens, gender. And what that does, that improves the quality of the project. And when you're looking at climate change, as Prime Minister said, that is real. So what we're pushing is to ensure all our investments are done in that way. Now, we are working at several levels to do blending, right? So we're working with IDB right now. In first week of November, we start the market studies to develop a national guarantee program fund for Belize. And this is for MSMEs. This is something that many other countries have, but we don't have, right? And so we have to meet with the credit unions, the banks, to look at their interest, their appetite, so we structure it the right way. Government has already green-lighted this. It should be about 50 million Belize. So that will create a lot of opportunity for especially small and micro and small entrepreneurs to be able to access financing. It de-risks for the banks, so that's a way of getting the private capital into development space, right? You know, we just got our Green Climate Fund accreditation, right? So that allows us to do projects up 100 million Belize dollars, category B projects, discuss that another time. But we have different financial instruments. So that accreditation is for loans, it's for guarantees, it's for grants, it's for equity, and it's for blending of all of those, right? That's a way that will allow us to, whatever project Belize wants to do, the development bank can step in and put those tools to work. Again, in the past, we had not like that. Now, the areas we can work, energy generation and access, buildings, cities, industries, appliances, livelihoods of people, communities, health, food, water security, as well as public-private cross-cutting types of projects. So this allows us to structure investments. It allows us to get into public-private partnerships. In other words, DFC is becoming, it is the Development Bank of Belize, but it's now having the ability to grow into that role full-time at an international level.
Yeah, that is indeed great to hear. I want to bring Marlo into the action a little bit. And Marlo works within the community-based financial institution space. And so for investors and the constituents that you serve, what do you believe, like in the credit union industry, so to speak, what role does it play in supporting new and expanding investments?
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Good afternoon, everyone. I think. Hello? Hello? Okay. I think I'd like to first address what I think many investors and listeners here would see as the obvious juxtaposition of my being here as the regulator appointed administrator of a financial institution on what is supposed to be an investment summit to promote Belize as a credible and transparent climate for investment. And there's three reasons why I think we're here. The first is obvious. Well, we sponsored, so I expected to get a spot, but no, I think that's just jokes aside. Genuinely, I think there is an interest in what the credit unions are doing and how we benefit the community. But third, I think it was more strategic in the sense that it's a signal to the investors that here we are, transparent and open, and we have taken the steps to ensure that there is stability within the financial system. It was not an easy decision by the regulator, which was done in March of 2023, but 2.5 years later, here we are, ensuring that the credit union is stable. So I just wanted to address that elephant in the room. I am an administrator of the credit union. I am not the general management of the credit union. As you know, administration is a legal state. So to answer your question, credit unions and community-based lenders exist for one reason and one reason only, and that is to serve the shareholders and the members. We do have a profit thrust behind our operations to ensure that we are profitable and return a surplus to the members. However, our members rely on us many times as the lender of first choice. We are their first interaction with access to credit in Belize. And that is true not only for St. Francis, but for the other 8 credit unions in Belize. We have assets under management of about $750 million US. So it's not insignificant in terms of the credit unions and the community-based lenders' contribution towards the economy. What we have seen too is very interesting. We have seen the credit unions act as an incubator for those first-time borrowers. And many of them have moved on to the commercial banks. Some of them still maintain a relationship with the community-based institutions. But we are seeing a return from the commercial banks as well. And in some instances, unfortunately, credit unions and community-based lenders have become lenders of last resort for some individuals. The credit union, St. Francis up north, was primarily started to serve the cane farmers. And since then, we have moved into San Pedro, we have moved into Kikaka to support the tourism industry, which is, as you know, 40% of our GDP and one of the primary exports of Belize, to really support and to hold up those industries. So when you look at the tourism industry and you look at sugarcane, along with professional services and fisheries, we're looking at some of the key exports which account for about 70 or 75% of our business in the credit union. So in terms of our impact, in addition to giving loans to members, members also have benefits that they would not ordinarily get from banks or even development institutions. Mm-hmm. We have debt benefits. We have special programs for loans, special programs for seniors, and we have dividends. So for your savings, depending on the type of saver you are, you invest actual equity into the credit union. And I believe a month and a half ago, we declared dividends, which was around 4.5% or 5%, which in today's market we don't see those type of yields. So beyond the obvious extension of credit to our members and the benefits that we offer, the members also benefit from rebates and from dividends on their investments in the credit union.
So looking at St. Francis or even within the movement, in terms of flexibility, issues like partnering with other stakeholders to widen access to capital for larger projects, is that part of what you entertain?
We are open to investing in larger projects. However, that's not the thrust of the credit union. The average loan size, for example, of credit unions in Belize is about 20,000 Belize dollars or 10,000 US dollars, compared to the banking system, which is 5 times larger, about 100,000 Belize dollars or 50,000 US. Nonetheless, we are open to partnering with DFC and with other commercial entities. In fact, we have recently been through the process of onboarding by CRESAP. So up north, we're CRESAP accredited, and that facility is supposed to roll out towards the end of this year to assist with sustainable agricultural processes. So we remain open, but Dr. Anderson alluded to something that we at the credit union are looking at as well. It's our internal model. So when we talk about being able to participate in larger projects, we have to ensure that there's two things: that we have liquidity, we actually have cash to lend, and we have the capital to buttress. The capital is very important in the event that these larger projects, to which we may not be entirely familiar from a risk perspective, in case there's some kind of deficiency, that we can actually buttress and absorb that loss. So we're looking at our internal models as well, and implementing an enterprise risk management system within the credit union, going department by department, function by function, task by task, to be able to quantify the risk within our operations. And once we understand and be able to mitigate the risk, then operationally we have a much more safer and clean environment, and we're more stable to continue to offer products and services to our members.
Okay, and one final question here. How do the credit union movement support small and medium enterprises scaling to meet export and investment goals?
Again, when you think about a credit union or a community-based institution, exports don't normally come to mind, but as I mentioned, alluded to previously, the sugar industry, which is a significant portion of our portfolio, we do have domestic consumption, but obviously that is for export. And we're very aggressive on the sugarcane front. In fact, much more so than some of the domestic banks who have kind of drawn a line in the sand and no longer offer financing to some of the cane farmers. Similarly, when it comes to tourism, we give loans for boats, we give loans for outboard motors, to hoteliers, mom and pop's operations. All those things are consumed here, but really those are service exports. So to scale, we work with them, and when we can no longer provide the service that I think they may need, then they look to the domestic banks. And we're fine with that relationship, because really the credit union is owned by the members. It's owned by them. It's there for their benefit, and they can utilize it how they see fit. And as I said before, we're seeing in the economy is circular, so we're seeing that some of those same members are coming back. And we do have an appetite to bring them back into the fold, because that's the purpose of the credit union. So we're trying to be very dynamic in the way that we treat with our members. And similar to DFC, I think we're probably playing off the same playbook. We have been looking at our systems to try to implement AI learning technology to really understand the portfolio, to digitalize all of our standard paper documents into something that can be queried by natural language, so that we can get insights into who our members are, so that we can better reach them.
Yeah, quite interesting indeed. Henry, you have a minute. Give a last plug for the DFC.
I do have a question, just in case.
Sure.
So I'll open the floor first to you.
Now that Marlo has spoken, I think the question goes both for Henry and Marlo. It's concerning the CRESAP loan. As you know, SIF is the financial manager of the CRESAP loan, and we have been approached by customers that have gone to DFC, not St. Francis Xavier yet, but DFC. Why are we charging an amount for the loan and an interest for grant? Because this is a loan grant program. And if you're talking to agriculture or farmers, especially in the sugar industry, that is going to be a problem. And so the take-up for those loans will be very, very low if we continue with that. I understand you wanting to be profitable. I understand you wanting to make sure that the organization is run or the institution is run efficiently, but we also have to ensure that small farmers, especially MSMEs, that are going to access these funds can pay the interest on the loan, but not on the grant, or at least not as much as they're being charged at this point.
Okay, so I will take that. We don't charge any interest on the grant. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. We charge
Admin.
admin. But,
Sorry.
But let me say why we charge this, right? That project wasn't properly developed.
I agree with you.
And there were a whole lot of requests that was being put on the DFC that cost us. And we were saying, and that's why DFC took a long time to sign on, because we were saying this won't work in Belize, this won't work, this won't work. Some of it was listened to, and now about 95% have been listened to. But the reality is this: DFC has not passed on the inflationary cost of funds to us, to the consumer, right? We have held it. So our interest rates have come down from about 13% to about 8.3, okay? Mm-hmm. We cannot manage a guarantee fund for another entity that's requiring a whole lot of administrating reporting, some of it which may not be value added, being blunt, and do it for free. And what was contemplated in the project that we should use our interest spread? Well, the interest spread is to manage the risk for the monies we lend. Has nothing to do with the grant. So as an accredited entity and going that way, we have to be prudent, right? But the farmer doesn't pay anything. The farmer gets the grant. So the farmer doesn't have to pay for the grant. All right, and we're doing, I think, well, I don't want to say the amount, but it's less than what we normally do.
Well,
a lot less.
I know.
So the management of the grant is actually a loss for DFC, but we have to do it. But again, as Belize, when we sign up to these things, right, we have to look at it, because when CARICRIS comes to do the rating of DFC, all right, or when GCF comes to look at us to see if they want to do business with us, we can't tell them that, well, you know, we did this, we know it didn't make good business sense, but we're trying to help. No, they won't hear that. That's right.
I hear you and agree with you, because we were also slapped with that loan at SIF for the financial management of that loan. But what I'm telling you is that...
But the uptake is good, Nardo. We are seeing, like, I don't want to call a number, but 3 digits in the queue right now, just for August.
That's very recent, though.
Yes.
Because
what was holding it back were the requirements that was being required, right? Then you had a committee of 3 public officers who would review these things and give responses. Well, when DFC sends 100 loans, there is no way 3 people can review those loans and send it back within any time. We had projects that the first one we sent up was November last year, right? And we didn't get the approval for that closer to March. All of things have been worked out because the World Bank sent a team, you know, and there's a lot of work going on. For sugar, there's additional considerations that has been elevated with the windows to ensure that the way the definition of a large farmer was, like above 20 acres, I don't know who came up with that, but they're moving that to 500 now. So if they do that, a lot more farmers will be able to benefit from the grant. So that is something that a meeting was held, and that has gone up to Washington to get a green light by. Right?
But I'm glad to hear that, because I was very concerned. Because like DFC is evaluated by the World Bank on the performance of your aspect of the loan, so is SIF. And so we have had a bad rap with that because of the uptake of the design of the loan. I will agree with you.
Well, not the loan, the grant. The loan is fine. The loan is DFC. The grant part of it.
The loan is designed with requirements that small farmers are unable to
not
fit.
the loan, Ms. Narda, not
So-
the loan.
But
So
we can disagree on that.
Well, let me tell you. If we changed DFC's thing from requiring land for everything, so if you come for a $5,000 loan, you sign yourself. No big issue there, right? So that's the loan. Where it was getting difficult was the whole environmental and social part of it on the grants. We did a whole lot of work to streamline both of them. But then loans would get held up because somebody is saying that if you do this for the pigs, whether or not it's this kind of, it's a mitigation or an adaptation thing, just for example,
Yeah.
and they hold giving the green light on the guarantee, and we're saying that makes no sense. You have to think about the people, right? But as I said, all of that seems to be behind us now, and the thing is picking up steam. I'm glad to hear you guys are coming on board. So it's picking up steam.
No, I'm glad to get the clarification from you, and I'm glad for Marlo that now is entering the whole aspect of that, and will definitely be able to work with it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, very solid exchange. The good news coming out of all of this so far is that within these two spaces, there's monies available for people to access, and it appears that the actual cost of financing is a bit lower than was initially reported. I have 17 more questions, but we're out of time. So thank you all for your...
I just want to say one thing. Just to the private sector, if you have projects that require climate financing, please reach out to us. We are a direct access entity. So bring your projects with the National Designated Authority, Ministry of Economic Transformation. We look at them and see if we can put them into the queue for GCF. Those things take a while, so the sooner you come, the better it is, right? Thank you.
I'll make a plug as well for the prospective entrepreneurs, the cleaning service, the bus pass, and the water park. We do have a branch here in San Pedro, so please feel free to visit our branch and see if there's any way that we can assist. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Loans from DFC.